Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.
Cory, I think the last time we had this big crowd may have been for Jim Aberest. I don't know what that means or signifies, but we're always glad to have you here, especially tell us what's going on in the great Northwest and tell us about South Dakota politics, so come on.
Thank you, Tom. Let me check. Can you hear me this way or do you want the mic? What do you say? Right. Go with the mic? All right. So I got to keep it down here because otherwise I'll be up there like this the whole time. Oh my goodness. Well, crap. Zach took my speech. Jim took my sales pitch. I was going to do some push-ups, but Myers is here, so I'm not going to dare that move. That's his stick. I can't take that. I don't know what's left. I left my billboard at home with all the dirty words painted on it to get your attention, so I don't know if I have anything. I don't know if I have anything. No, I got something. I really do want to start, first of all, by saying, honest to goodness, I'm not going to kiss you, but I love you all to pieces. I seriously love you all to pieces. Like Jim said, you folks get together every week and do an event like this, and it's not just one guy sitting behind his computer yelling and hollering, it's all of you getting together and building and maintaining and encouraging and promoting community, and that's vital getting things done. You folks do that on a weekly basis here, and in all the other work that you various activists, Joan and Lori and everybody else that you do, and Zach raising hell as party chair, party exec. You folks do a lot of important work, and I'm so proud to be associated with folks like you. I'm so proud to have a chance to come and talk to folks like you, that you would trust me not to give you indigestion over a busy noon hour and say something of value. And I'm so glad that I can do something, write a few things every now and then and provide a hyperlink and a funny picture. Stay tuned for my funny picture of Charlie Hoffman. That's coming up on the blog. That you folks would trust me, the way like Jim says, to take time out of your day and read what I have to say. That's so heartening, and it makes me glad to be able to be a part of helping you in the important things that you think need to get done. I really do love you folks, and I respect you folks for the respect that you give me in return. Thank you so much. And I'll also say I really love South Dakota. If you have been following the blog, you know that I've been doing a statewide tour this week. Nothing like Rick Weiland, although Rick's got a van and a driver. I've just got a Volkswagen Bug, so even Rick is riding in luxury compared. I am to Rick like Rick is to Mike Grounds when it comes to luxury. The bus is coming someday. Keep those tip jars ringing. But I've been having a wonderful time touring the state in the last 8 days. I've been to Spearfish, saw a rattlesnake. It was great. 6 feet away from me, saw my rattlesnake for the summer. And then I went and saw Charlie Hoffman in Eureka, so it's been a week of danger and excitement, let me tell you. But I've been to Spearfish. Went to Rick Weiland's fundraiser out in Piedmont. I've had the pleasure of that gorgeous, breathtaking, heart-stopping drive from Scenic down to Manderson. If you've done the drive, you know what I mean. If you haven't, you need to take that drive. It's beautiful, and I've talked to interesting, important, hardworking people in Manderson and Mission and up in Eureka and up by Coleman. I've just had so many good conversations, and I'm having more yet today with really interesting people in South Dakota about politics, about community. It is such a thrill to have such interesting people and thoughtful and caring and dedicated people to talk to. It makes me excited wherever I go. And they say, "Where are you from?" I say, "South Dakota, heck yeah." I am so glad to be here with you. Thank you again for that. I was going to do a speech, wasn't it? Well, I was going to do a speech. I want to say a lot of things. I always want to say a lot of things. But you know what? I'm going to try to keep my actual speech short because, number one, I want to stop soon and just let you folks ask me questions. It's just like on the blog. Yeah, I say stuff, but the comment section is there for a reason because I learned from you folks, and I want to know what's on your minds and maybe address some of those issues. So we'll spend most of our time doing Q&A. But number two, I want to keep it short because the thing I want to talk about, the person I want to talk about, is sitting right in the same room with me for the first time ever, and she's looking up from her food and thinking, which part of these tomatoes can I chuck at that young fella? I really do want to talk about my favorite new Democrat, Sue Wismer, this week, and the excellent job she's done this week. And the fact that she has proven to me this week very distinctly that, oh yeah, when EB-5 breaks, and when the ICWA and foster care scandals break, and when Marty Jackley is finally driven to resign, there's no way, of course, he's going to lose this election, but when he's finally driven to resign, the person appointing his replacement will be Governor Susan Wisdom. Dead serious, and like I say on the blog, I mean every word I say. I don't say every word I mean, because I got to keep some of it secret, but I mean every word I say. I want to talk about Sue's performance this week, why I'm excited, what I'm looking for going ahead for all Democrats, not just Susan as our leader, but for all Democrats. As you know, and when I came here in April, I got to sit and dine with you folks in April at a forum when Cody Houseman came and visited with your group and talked about getting the youth vote, and I was like, wow, that's a heck of an idea. And I stood in the back and almost got in a fist fight with Mike Myers, but then we had a really nice conversation. It was a good visit. But for me, back then, you probably saw me wearing my Joe Low button. I was a Joe Low guy. We remember that primary, and no scabs to pick here. I'm just saying, it's on the record. I'm not afraid to say. I saw Joe Low announce his candidacy. I saw Susan Wismer announce her candidacy. I compared the campaigns that were going on, and I looked at the two, and I said, Joe Low was showing me the fire and the leaders he was projecting, the fire and the leadership and the dedication to core South Dakota Democratic values and the unapologetic embrace of the Democratic label that I thought, that's the Democrat I want. Joe Low this spring represented better than Susan what I wanted to see the Democratic Party do. I do get a little nervous saying that if they're in the room. I'm used to hiding behind my computer, but I'm okay with saying that. I thought Joe Low would be better. 55% of those Democrats who showed up thought otherwise. And hey, that's why we have primaries. I could be wrong, and often am. In the primary, 55% said, no, Cory, trust Susan. She can bring the heat on this. I'll admit I was nervous. I didn't see that heat in the spring. I didn't see that heat after June. Now, of course, that's just me. As you can tell, I like bringing the heat. I like making the people in front a little nervous and wondering, why does he keep spitting on my hamburger like this? I wish he'd settle down. It's a problem. It happens. But I was wondering, when are we going to break loose with the fire we need to beat this? Because I believe firmly that to beat Dennis Dugard in any element of 40 years of one-party rule, we have to bring every tool forward we can. And that includes fire and spit and grit and hell raising. So I went to Dakota Fest on Wednesday. I was a little nervous. I was wondering, going to have to make excuses after this debate. I'm going to make Democrats unhappy with my assessment of what happens in this debate. I didn't have much time to think about that because I got there about 2 minutes before it started, kind of like today. Sorry for being late. I apologize. It's just traffic, crazy business. But that debate got going, and Susan Wismer proved my concerns wrong. Susan Wismer showed me exactly the kind of fire, and I'll use the word attack. Some people are going to go, oh, attacking, that's mean, that's naughty, don't do that, don't be mean. Unlike Bull Roar, Republicans do it to us all the time. Susan Wismer turned the tables and caught Dennis Dugard short-sighted, flat-footed, unprepared. Dennis is sitting there on that table, he's going, who is this woman? Why is she picking on me? Oh my goodness, I mean, if you want, I'm going to boil that whole debate down to one moment for you. There's lots of good clips of Susan and the things she said and the punches she threw. I like that, and it was good, and I hope it keeps happening every time. But that debate is going to boil down to 3 words. Well, 3 and a half. There's a contraction. Grammarians, take your pick. I'm going to call it 3 words. It was when Dennis Dugard, toward the end, after getting pounded and pounded and pounded on EB-5, Dennis Dugard said, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I'm seeing the ads now. I'm seeing the ads now, all right, Susan? I'm seeing the ads now. I'm seeing the video, and it says, K-12 funding, the state share of K-12 funding in South Dakota is last in the nation. State funding of K-12 education is last in the nation. Dennis Dugard, what do you know about that? I wasn't there. The EB-5 scandal allowed, as Zach said, a private state employee to privatize a federal program and make millions of dollars for him and his buddies. I wasn't there. South Dakota's roads are crumbling. The bridges are structurally deficient. I wasn't there. we elected you to be governor and to do good things for South Dakota. Well, I wasn't there. I mean, this can go on and on. You can have all sorts of fun with this, and Susan's probably getting to pay good campaign ads to figure out better clips to do there. But the fun doesn't end with that one line that Susan drove Dennis onto the defensive to say, when your governor says, I wasn't there, just have at it. It's free shots now. And that defensiveness came out because we took the offense. Because Susan was not offensive, but she took the offense and we need to do that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but boy, preaching to the choir is fun sometimes. It's fun and you might as well do it and feel good about it. That's why we gather to get reinforced so we can go out and face the peanut gallery and preach to them too. You practice with the choir and you preach to the peanuts out there. But we need to go on the offensive because we should be offended when we look at a state. As Susan eloquently put it, she did it better than I did and with fewer hand gestures, and that's fine. But she pointed out that we have a culture that for a generation plus has let things in South Dakota fall apart, that has betrayed the trust of her grandpa, Art, and her uncle, Kurt, who in the legislature worked to establish a legacy of good schools and good roads and good policies and good railroads, she mentioned, and so many more things she can rattle off that I can't remember. She's that good. We have this legacy that's being wasted by a one-party regime that thinks they don't have to answer questions, that think that peer and state government is their personal purse and not a public trust. If you're not offended by that, you should be. And that's why the Democrat that I saw running for governor on Wednesday is the Democrat that I want to be our governor, the Democrat whom I believe can be governor, and the Democrat whom I believe can lead a conversation with the smart, attentive people of South Dakota to say, this is why your current governor isn't there, and why if you send me there, I will be there every day, not for yoke balling, not for these lawyers making money off failed beef plants, but for you and you and you and you and you and every one of you who is part of South Dakota. That's why I'm excited about this race. That's why I'm so glad Susan kicked some real butt on Wednesday, and that's why we're going to keep kicking that butt right through November. Thank you, Susan. I mean every word I say. Susan's going to do it. Democrats, you can do it. And remember, we do it by fighting and believing in who we are. We don't have to apologize for being Democrats. We don't have to feel, I mean, we're the underdogs, there's no doubt about that, but we're the underdogs because, well, the Republican Party has done a good job of snowing the people of South Dakota for many years. And now's our time to fight and melt that snow, plow the road, and take over ourselves and show them how it's done right. That's the way to do it, is be aggressive, proud, unapologetic Democrats. Thank you very much. That's all sorts of fun, but I invite you to have more fun now. That's my speech. I want to hear your questions. You tell me what's on your mind. If you have questions, as long as your name is not Lee Stranahan, I'm open to your questions. Fire away, Jim. You went first.
I think I read in your column today that the Attorney General made the comment along these lines, I never really said that it was a suicide. Did you write that, and did he say that, and isn't that a huge situation that's occurred?
Yes. It's a weird semantic situation, but for background, if you look at the Mitchell Daily Republic, I believe it was Denise Ross's article, all these people with S on the end of their name mess up my apostrophes, because we just have names like Wismer and Heidelberger, come on, Rounses, Myerses, all these apostrophe S's. Sorry, yes. Mitchell Daily Republic, I believe it was Wednesday evening, put it up, and Jack Lee was responding to Mr. Myers' discussion of, this, well, as Mr. Myers said, an undocumented, unsupported assertion that it wasn't suicide or didn't look like suicide. But Jack Lee did say, and you got the quote pretty much right, the Attorney General said, I never really said it was suicide. But then he went on and he said, I was just confirming the findings of the deputy coroner, or whatever it was. Now, this is a slight semantic thing, because the paragraph before says Jack Lee feels confident in the ruling that it was a suicide. But I'm like, why are you even trying to thread that needle, Marty? If he's trying to say, well, it's suicide, but I'm not the one who said it was, that's just weird and semantic, and it bucks all of the, like the press has pretty much adopted that interpretation. But by saying that, he opens the door again to my friend Sam Kephart to come back on my blog and say the Chinese Mafia killed Richard Benda. I do not believe that. I do not endorse that view. But my point is, why does Jack Lee open that door? It's in their Read the Mitchell Republic. Take their word for it, not mine. Mrs. Blake, yes, Lieutenant Governor.
Zach Crago has just given me a great opportunity. Breaking news from David Montgomery. The GOAC Committee has decided to ask Duke Bolin to testify with a subpoena. Not because Susan Wismer wanted to do it, but suddenly now they wanted to do it. So everybody in this room needs to write a letter this weekend to the Argus Leader about how South Dakotans deserve to know the truth about what's going on with this scandal. What's going on? Where is our money? What happened to this man? Who is involved? Even the people who weren't there need to speak up. Everybody needs to do that this weekend. So they are inundated. Every single candidate, it will help every Democratic candidate to get this scandal out in the open, rip it apart, and find out what really happened. So write your letter.
Susie, that's great news. Zach, thank you for pointing that out. And the thing is, now, to be clear, independent of the electoral implications of that announcement, that's a political victory because we've just made Republicans reverse themselves within a month. There's no good spin on their side for that. They have to admit our pressure and the pressure of their constituents made them do that. Independent of the political side, this is a victory for South Dakotans because that's one more step. Like you said, we deserve those answers no matter what party we're a part of. We need to know who, what, when, and why. And we need to make sure it never happens again. So that's a great step forward. We've got reason to walk out of here being happy in addition to the sunshine outside. Yes, sir.
That's a cover, however, so that we don't have to go after the ground.
There's always a deeper game.
And one is, some of that's politics, but Brown is running on his record. He's running for office on his record. It's part of the territory. You should have to answer for what he did in the streets, especially when somebody was killed, you were paying a lot of money.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, if you look at it,
We should be asking, why isn't rounds on their agenda too?
yep, this might be like we've won round 2 and there are 30 rounds. We need to push for rounds to be the next one to speak because, and honestly, now projecting, now I'm blogging live without my keyboard, what probably happens is they subpoena Yoke Ballin and he'll sit down with that smug, I don't have to answer questions attitudes of his. Remember, Yoke Ballin is a guy who back when, when the EB-5 wasn't even in the news, there was an attorney looking into this issue, and the attorney asked for some documents and such, and Yoke Ballin wrote an email back. I've got the email somewhere in my blog last November, and he said, sure, I'll answer your questions if you pay for my lawyer. This is a character who doesn't want to answer questions, so it's very possible, even getting him subpoenaed, he'll walk into that committee and take the fifth on everything, which is fine. Let's get him on the record taking the fifth, and then we can say, yep, all the more reason that we need to get the other knowers and players up on the stand here. What's going on? Absolutely. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Good line. Yes, sir.
Political implications aside, is there any possibility that if there is a cover-up, this tax state of South Dakota, which could become liable for malfeasance?
Please repeat.
Yeah, I'll repeat that. The question is, independent of political implications, if there's a cover-up going on, is it possible it's being done to prevent South Dakota from facing some sort of legal liability from the investors, et cetera, correct? There's every possibility. And there was a lawsuit on exactly that issue. I believe it was in 2011. Some of the investors in Northern Beef Packers did sue Yoke Ballin and SDRC, saying, hey, you misled us as to the viability of Northern Beef Packers. You did not provide us sufficient information to justify our investment in that project. Plus, there are other issues about whether or not Yoke Ballin was just selling securities illegally without all the proper disclosures and such. That's a whole other kettle of fish. I'm speculating completely. That's certainly possible, but you know what? If the state of South Dakota is legally liable for doing something wrong, well, The people we wronged have every right to take it out of our hides. And if that costs us tax dollars, well, that's the price we pay for electing people who would allow such a program to be used and abused. And that's why it's all the more important to make sure we elect people of honesty and integrity who would never let something like that happen. That's a very distinct possibility is the most substantive thing I can say.
Small price to pay to clean up that mess.
Absolutely. Good government isn't cheap, good government isn't easy. That's what we're about. Phil.
Cory, a couple questions. First of all, how long are you staying in South Dakota? And the second question is, when are you going to run for something? That aside, just talking about blogging, and I'm not saying this to just to brown nose or whatever, but a lot of blogs are loose on the truth and just spread rumors and things like that. But what I found with yours is that, you're not making stuff up. Everything that you put on there is very well researched. And in the event, no matter how infinitesimal it might be, that you're wrong on something, how do you go back and you correct that, right? You're not just going to let it stay out there, right? I mean, other blogs are horrible.
Sure. Back to front, absolutely. I approach my writing the same way I approach my teaching when I have the joy and pleasure of being in the classroom and teaching your kids. I approach my writing the same way I approach my marriage when I'm dealing with my wife or with my daughter. The only currency I have is my integrity. If I lie, if I can't be trusted by you, by my students, by my administration, by my employer, by my wife, I can't be trusted by my wife, I'm a dog, because that's the worst thing. And she'd tell, she'd know if I was lying. She could read it, because I don't do it. I don't lie well, for that matter. I have no currency but my integrity, and so I have to preserve that, because I don't have money to coast on. I don't have a luxury bus to ride on. I just have to tell the truth. See guys with money and luxury buses and fancy insurance offices, yeah, they can coast on, maybe or maybe not telling the truth. But that's just the approach I take to it. So yeah, if I screw up, if I'm wrong about something, I'll say so. I have to. I have an obligation to do so. Working front to back and in the middle and avoiding things. South Dakota, I'm having the pleasure this week, just so you all, to the extent my personal life matters. My wife is going to be an ELCA Lutheran pastor, bringing the good heat there. They're the liberals, by the way. So if I manage not to alienate Bishop Zellmer or his friends, my wife, she has to do one semester on campus at Luther Seminary in St. Paul. So I will be in the suburbs of South Dakota for a semester. It's great. Already St. Paul, oh yeah, so-and-so's there, and he's going to school from South Dakota. St. Paul is all expats. So I'm like, yeah, it's just like home. You say Garrison Keillor, and everybody knows the reference you're making. I love that. So we'll be in St. Paul for a semester. My wife will finish her degree, and then she'll get her call, possibly by December, and my hope is, we have no idea. As the theists among you would say, my fate is entirely in the hands of the Lord, praise be His name. I don't say that, though. I don't believe that stuff, sorry. By January 1, we hope to be happily ensconced in some poor unsuspecting legislator's district so I can give him all sorts of log action. Be warned, District 23, be warned. Yes, sir.
For the House Representatives, Karina was making a comment that she was against the pipeline. Of course, all the rich farmers were all the other way, of course, going the other direction.
All the rich farmers who don't live on the pipeline route, right?
Then there's a big spill in the Ohio River, well, south of Cincinnati. I think we need to put that in the paper, that maybe we need to be a little more concerned about it. Mike Rounds wants to completely do away with the EPA, how silly he is. He's just ready for a big black eye and a fight. That's all he wants to do when he goes there. He's not going to do one thing for us. But we should probably get in the paper and do something for Karina on that oil pipeline. So whatever we can do to make that happen.
And I've been heartened, in going back to my what it takes for Democrats to win, because that's all, that's the question on all of our minds. My position has been that to win, Democrats need to be Democrats. Now it's tricky on Keystone XL because Keystone XL is not a straightforward, we're against the pipeline, because on Keystone XL, one of the big backers of Keystone XL is labor. And labor is friends with Democrats. And I had this one, I got to go to Washington, D.C. a couple summers ago for Dakota Rural Action, and I ended up talking to a labor guy from New Mexico who was all about Keystone XL is going to be great. And I looked at him, and he outweighed me by a good 50 pounds or so, as pretty much every union guy is going to. And I said, well, no, it's not. And we walked up and down K Street for about 15 minutes going back and forth about it. It was a vigorous debate, and this guy was not uninformed. He was talking about the jobs and the economic impact and the energy impact and blah, 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 blah. And I was doing my things about spills like that and trying to come to an agreement. So it's not a pure Democratic issue. But at least in the Cory world of Democrats, yeah, we ought to oppose Keystone XL. It doesn't provide any benefit to South Dakota. It's going to ship Canadian foreign oil to the Gulf to ship to foreign buyers in China, which will raise our gasoline prices by clearing the glut in Oklahoma and raising domestic gasoline prices. It'll lower the global price, but we're going to pay more. And it's going to put all the risk in South Dakota on top of, I put my Republican hat back on, and I've never heard any Republicans talk about this, on top of stealing land from South Dakotans through eminent domain and handing that land to a private foreign corporation. Those darn foreigners, keep them out of our ranches, by gum. Republican hat off, but there's the split. See, Keystone XL is a fascinating issue because it should be a Democrat issue and one where we could find common ground with some of our most radical, root and tootinest, property rightsinest Republican South Dakotans. And that's the message we should hammer, because Keystone XL doesn't do jack for South Dakota, except there are vigorous words I could use. It does us no good.
It'll give us a couple hundred jobs, real good jobs while it's going on. So there'll be some welders, fitters will make excellent wage while it's here. Then it'll bring in 500 illegal aliens that does all the bullshit work on the side. Half of those will stay. It'll cost us a ton of money then. And you're right, we don't get any, except for Rounds' brother, I believe, has a brand new house, who got a big kickback after the one that's already here. So there is some benefits if you're in the right place. But we are one of the most corrupt states in the United States, even though we're paid the least.
And for what it's worth, I mean, you mentioned the construction jobs, which are not the 42,000 that Christie Noak said. We've refuted that every time. It's hundreds. They're here for a couple weeks, and then they go down the line. And when I went and surveyed the Keystone 1 line, remember, they've already run a pipeline up our backsides through East River. When I went out and looked at the pipeline and I looked at the trucks, the contractors that were there, I didn't see any contractors from South Dakota. It was a Wisconsin outfit, Michael's Construction, I think, from Wisconsin. It's not even South Dakota jobs. It's a temporary boost to buying sandwiches. It's a temporary grim boost to the man camps with nothing else to do, going into the nearby town and finding your wives and daughters. Sorry, but that's the truth of it. That's something our Indian friends on the reservations are keenly concerned about. There's a human trafficking issue. There's all sorts of concern about the real economic activity those workers will bring. Nothing personal to folks who build pipelines. I'm sure there's plenty of good men, but you build a man camp out in the middle of nowhere, West River, beer and other trouble is going to happen.
You build a refinery right up there in that reservation.
Paid for it, this bill. Who's responsible?
Well, that's where the jobs are gonna come from.
Who's gonna pay? I tried to ask the PUC, and I got a runaround and a flaky answer. I never found out who's gonna be responsible for cleanup.
Yeah.
When this bill's occurred, because they always do.
Right. Comment was who's going to be responsible for the cleanup of the pipeline, and Susan can tell us about this too. Consistently, the Republican legislature has resisted any effort to increase the bonding requirements for TransCanada and other pipeline systems. So
What about the uranium out west?
yes,
Back here. I don't attend these normally. I'm an independent. My name is Schlauer. But to find out about Keystone Pipeline, go to a website. It's gmo.com. It's Jeremy Grantham's company's website. Jeremy Grantham is one of the most highly respected investment advisors on the planet. And he writes in his latest quarterly report a page-and-a-half analysis of Keystone Pipeline. I urge all of you to go and read it, and you will find that this jobs issue is bogus. Stop and think. Do you know any unemployed welders? There are none. A major refinery in Houston was canceled because they could not find enough people to come and build it. This jobs issue is, as I say, bogus. It's a question of what it will do is create more competition temporarily for some specific jobs like welders, but it will do nothing for us in terms of long-range job creation. But this article, and Dwayne and I each have a copy, if you want to call us, we'll probably email it to you. But in a page and a half from one of the most respected investment people in the United States, you can find out what you need to know about Keystone.
And Rich, say that website again. It was gmo.com? gmo.com for information about Keystone XL. And Jeremy Grantham, you said his analysis of the jobs and the economics of it.
There you go. The other, and the first part is a short article, deals with the spill that you mentioned in Ohio, I believe it was. 1 million barrels of this stuff.
Ohio River.
In the Ohio River. They send through. The problem very basically is that they mix something with it to make it so it'll flow through the pipe because it's
The spill that happened at a transport plant from one large truck to the other one, and they caught it within 15 minutes. 8,000 gallons went in 8 minutes, or in 15 minutes.
Well, there was a break in the pipeline, 1 million gallons, or a million gallons of this stuff went into the river. And what happens is that what makes it pumpable is volatile. That evaporates. That's why people have to be evacuated, because it's poisonous. The rest is tar and it sinks to the bottom, and there's no way in our lifetime you can clean that up. So anyway, GMO.com, that's his second quarter letter.
Very good point, Rich. Thanks for coming and telling us about that today. Other questions, if there's still time? In the back.
I have two. The one thing that I heard Christy Nome say about the Keystone is, and she said it a couple of times during debate, and no one in the news has called her out on it, how she said that we need to lower our independence on Mideast oil, so that's why we need to have this pipeline. And like you said, everyone knows the oil is going to China, and we're not going to use any of the oil. And as anyone in the news media, I didn't see anyone call her out on this in any of the articles about the debate, that is a flat-out lie, period. And I think it's kind of upsetting to me that a lot of people in the media, they don't call their representatives out, the incumbents out, on their flat-out lies that they're saying. I mean, everybody knows, if you do any research on the XL pipeline, that oil is going to China. We are not using it. And my second part is I wanted to talk about the EB5 thing and Bob Mercer. I find it a little curious that Bob Mercer is wanting this Benda thing, because to tell you the truth, I don't trust Bob Mercer. We got to look at his background and where he comes from and who he's worked for. He's worked for Rounds, and I believe he's worked for Janklow. And I almost think all this stuff, like what happened today, the announcement of the subpoena and Bob Mercer going after the death report and autopsy, is a way for the Republicans to tamp out these fires now before the election. Because can you imagine 2 weeks before the election if this all came up and it would be up in the news? And I think there's a concerted effort there that they're trying to tamp out some fires.
Oh, that could well be, and I'd say, okay, if you Republicans aren't making a concerted effort to use your allies, the media, or whatever, to tamp this fire out, you're idiots. They need to be doing something, because we've lit a fire this week. That's still something good. Fire's there. Yeah. I'd much rather we lit a fire and the Republicans have to expend resources now while people are nervous and concerned, and that they have to tamp that fire out and take a couple weeks to do it, rather than not have a fire at all and they're just coasting to coronation. Even if they're able to tamp it out, this is still a strategic advantage, and we got to set that fire. And that's the thing. You can't think too far ahead. Well, you can think far ahead, but you can't unplan due to too far ahead. You got to go ahead and say, yeah, sure, they'll try to tamp it out. Let's give them something to tamp and keep pouring it on, because eventually they'll run out of tampers. We hope. Yeah. We hope. But yeah, it's a good point, something to watch for. Yes, ma'am.
You referenced the Keystone East River, and my understanding is that they ignored labor unions for the East River construction. And I wondered if you had tracked the East River pipeline looking for bad incidents or spills or people that gave right away being highly upset about it, or did you track it for any problems?
I don't really pretend to be an expert on the pipeline. I did do a lot of research on it. My main work in the direction you're talking about consists of two major areas. One, I did one post where I went to a farmer, Mike and Sue Simpson farm in Minor County. It's like 27 miles due west of my place on Lake Herman. They invited me to their farm while the digging was happening. That's where I saw the Wisconsin construction crew and all that, saw the pipeline going in, got a wonderful picture of, Mike Simpson, this big farmer, your typical seat cap, big burly rural guy. Not me, obviously. But he's sitting there on the pipe. It's right behind him, and this big circle kind of frames his body. And I remember the picture so well because he said to me, polite and genteel folk, please plug your ears for just a moment. I'll signal when you can unplug it again. Mike Simpson, this farmer who was forced to have the Keystone XL pipeline on his land, said to me, well, I guess I'm the first man who can say he got a 2,000-mile pipeline shoved up his ass. And I had that picture of him sitting right by the pipeline, and I thought, I can't pass that up. So I had a good talk with him, and experienced exactly his frustration that nobody in state government would stand up for him against the eminent domain that a South Dakota judge ruled that Keystone could do because Keystone XL is a common carrier. You go ahead and try to ship your raw milk or your corn syrup or whatever on the pipeline and see how common it is. But that was the major report I did. If you wanted to look it up, it was in 2009. I would say just Google Keystone Simpson pipeline through the heartland. Keystone Simpson pipeline through the heartland. That'll come up, and you'll see the Wisconsin crew and see Mike Simpson's feelings about it. And I heard from other landowners too that same thing. How can we be forced to give up our property rights to folks from a foreign country? And Sue Wismer's neighbors in Marshall County, right? They had the same things. They went through up there. That's there. In terms of the leaks, as I recall, along every pumping station in South Dakota, there are 4, and when they switched it on, all 4 of them had a leak sometime in the first year of operation. Now, they were all small leaks, nothing on the scale of the Ohio leak or the Kalamazoo leak or the Arkansas or Louisiana, whichever one that was, or even the Yellowstone leak that happened in Montana a couple years ago on an Exxon line. They were small leaks, and they were probably from, honestly, just gaskets not being fit right, that sort of thing. Now, 500 gallons of oil drips on you, you're not going to think it's a small leak, but they were relatively small. As far as I know, there have been no breaches of the pipeline itself in South Dakota, from what I'm aware. And since that first year, there haven't been a lot of incidents like that. So the blog guy in me goes, oh darn, nothing bad has happened yet. Because it's that yellow journalism, we're waiting for the scandalous stuff. The South Dakota in me says, oh, thank goodness nothing bad has happened yet in terms of a major environmental leak. And we always say yet because there will always be that danger. That's what I know about that.
The eminent domain is camouflaged as national security. We won't be dependent on foreign oil, tar sands.
Well, that's what the politicians camouflage it as. The legal justification for it here, I don't think ever touched it. The legal justification in South Dakota, and that they've done in Texas and other places, is simply the common carrier camouflage. It's common carrier, it's just like a road, so you can claim that. Crazy business. Tom, I think you're giving me the look. What do you got?
For education, what do you anticipate is going to be happening with Common Core and the implementation coming up this next session?
My friend Jim Boland's in the back, and I hope Jim Boland's going to bust his chops on that one. And I'll say it, this is the first time I've got to see Jim. And he knows this if he's read the blog. I don't know if Republicans deign to read such filth. But I am glad that Jim Boland had the good gosh darn sense to get out of the Commissioner and School of Public Lands race. That's got to be the most boring job in South Dakota. And stayed in the legislature where he could actually do something about the stuff he cares about, like Common Core. So good call, Jim. There's my shout out to a crazy Republican today. Sorry, I get excited and say some crazy things too, just like Marty Jackley does when he's under pressure. In terms of Common Core, sorry, I get going. I wrote an article for South Dakota Magazine last year, and I've mentioned this on the blog too about Common Core, saying, you know what? I didn't hang out with the Tea Partiers on this. Speaking as a teacher, I honestly feel, and this is where half the superintendents in South Dakota no longer hire me, but oh well, not the first time. Common Core and No Child Left Behind and the curriculum on the wall And every other major top-down, and this one isn't federal top-down, it's state collaborated top-down, but I don't care. No other federal, state, top-down education mandate has ever played a substantive role in allowing me or Jim to walk into our classrooms and do anything to substantively improve the performance of our students. Common Core is a massive waste of bureaucratic resources that takes teachers out of the business of working with their students and forcing them to fill in a bunch of papers to codify the good gosh darn professional sense they already have. And if we trusted teachers, we'd know they're already doing every day. That's all Common Core is. It's bureaucratic cover for the folks on top just to document that we teachers are doing our jobs. On that ground, I find Common Core offensive, and I wish that the Tea Party folks and others will stop talking about it being a United Nations Soviet plot and just say that Common Core is really a waste of valuable and scarce teacher resources. Just end it and let teachers teach, and your problem is solved.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really glad anytime people take time to listen to me. I yield the floor back to your eminent chair, Mr. Cool. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I always hate
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go. Come on, let's go. Come on.